We've been taught to chase the numbers. Grow your account, increase your followers and your subscribers, and maybe a percentage of those people will buy from you. But that's not necessarily the case here in 2025. Those numbers are just vanity. And today I'm going to break down why chasing larger follower or subscribers numbers will not equal money in your bank account. Welcome back to the Keep Creating podcast. My name is Larry G and I am your host. Just a little background on me. I've been a social media marketing professional for the past 10 years. I've grown several accounts. I've run several ads. I've spent hundreds of thousands of other people's money to get them the results that they desire. So I have just a tiny bit of credibility to what I'm saying today. And like I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be breaking down why chasing those subscriber and follower numbers isn't necessarily the best move today in 2025 at the time of this recording. Now, if we back things up just a little bit to, let's say, 2016 to probably like 2019, golden era of let's grow our accounts to increase followers. And, a percentage of those followers will definitely buy. Back then, I was seeing, 3 to 10% conversion rates as like that was the sweet spot. In a post-2020 world, in a world where TikTok and their algorithm has completely shifted the game on how a lot of other social media platforms and networks operate, we're seeing this shift from I follow you, so I'm going to see your content to I'm interested in something, so I'm going to see that content. I believe that TikTok really shifted the market in a way that is beneficial. Now, subscribers and followers are nice to have, but just because you have them doesn't mean they see your content. We saw people struggling with this in 2018, 2019, even 2020, before things all the way shifted of they had hundreds of thousands of followers and only a very small percentage of their audience would even see their posts. Back then, those algorithms were working to show people things that they thought they were interested in or show people posts that they thought were from people that they followed. And that's where, we started to see YouTube and Instagram turn on the notification. So notify me when somebody posts. And while that was an effective idea in theory, in reality, I feel like it really just blew people's phones up if you really wanted to see posts from certain people, or it caused them to be super selective of the people that they got notifications from. Either way, I think around that era, we all kind of got burned out on, I don't need all these notifications on my phone. I don't want all of these notifications on my phone. I'm already half addicted to social media. The last thing I need is to be notified every time someone that I like posts something, or be bothered to remember the names of everyone that I follow. If I follow someone, it's obvious that I want to see more content from them. Getting off of my soapbox of how I believe algorithms should work, I think it's really important now that with this shift, a lot of platforms are moving to more of we saw that you were interested in this person and this type of content, so we're going to serve you more of this type of content, but not necessarily from this person. It's more interest-based at this point. And while I do think that it's a better user experience from a creator perspective, you have to work just a little bit harder to stand out, although it is slightly easier to find your tribe. So let's jump into the first point, and that is the myth of the magic follower number. Back in the day, and even now, there are certain features that become unlocked when you reach certain follower or subscriber numbers on platforms. For Instagram, it was a magic number that would allow you to have a link in your stories. However, they've since taken that away. They also had a magic number before you could get a verified check. That's also been taken away, and you can just buy those now. So on Instagram, I believe those magic numbers are starting to fall away. I think what people and business owners and coaches and personal brands feel is if I don't have a certain number of followers, people are not going to trust me or believe me. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think if you can show up and deliver value, and there are several types of value, but if you can show up and deliver that value and garner the attention I don't think it matters anymore how many followers you have. Now, a lot of people tell the story of, I believe her name was Ari. She had millions of followers and could not sell 6 t-shirts. Just because you have followers or just because you have subscribers means nothing anymore. On the platform of YouTube, we're seeing people with hundreds of thousands of subscribers still not be able to sell their product or service. And it's not necessarily that their product or service isn't good, it's that they've built up this number of people who don't really watch their videos. Those are old numbers. They buy a channel, all kinds of things. What we're seeing on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram is people are being served content that they're interested in. And now it's not even a matter of this person doesn't have a lot of followers. It's what are they doing for me? What kind of value are they providing me? What can I learn or get from this person that makes them worth coming back to, that makes them worth interacting with? So I don't think that now you need a magic number. If you wanted a magic number in your head, I would aim for 1,000. There's a book that talks about 1,000 true fans. And if you can get 1,000 true fans, then you'll most likely have a sustainable business. But the key is they have to be true fans. They can't just be vanity metric numbers. Moving along into the next point, I want to iterate that the authority that you're seeking to build is built with depth, not reach. I see so many clients wonder and think about, I'm not reaching X number of people. My reach is down. My impressions are down. That may be true. And there are other ways and techniques to skirt and get around this. The thing that we want to make sure that we're understanding is it's the depth of the content, the depth of your authority, not necessarily the reach. Anyone can create a 6-second video with a few tips or a nice little story, and it can be accepted by the masses. Those things are very easy to create. It's so simple to create surface level content. What's not easy is creating deep content that goes beyond just the surface level, not just talking about what you know, but how did you get there? What are the steps to take? How could somebody else follow in your footsteps? Could you guide someone along the same path and answer all of their nuanced questions? That is what builds authority and builds trust. That might not necessarily get you a ton of followers up front. However, it will build a community and build a tribe of people who care about your depth of knowledge, who care about how detailed you are in your process. And those are more likely the people that are going to buy from you. Now, they might not buy from you right away. They might not buy your entry-level offer. They might not buy your mid-tier offer. But if they spend enough time with you, and that's another concept that we're going to get to, if they spend enough time with you and they really get to know you, or they feel like they get to know you, that high ticket offer, the one where it's, I get to work directly with this person, those are usually the people that are going to connect with that offer and usually buy it. It's a longer process most of the time, but it's worth it in the end. I'll use myself as an example. Back in 2014 to probably 2016, I was watching a ton of Gary Vee. I was watching Daily V. I was watching all of the Ask Gary V's. I was engulfed in that man's content. I was listening to the podcast. He was literally all I could think about business-wise. Leading up to probably several books at this point, I've bought 3 of them. Leading up to his book launches, I was honed in on the content. And whenever those books launched, I bought them because they were condensed versions of the videos. He said this. He mentioned that his books are basically his videos condensed into a smaller format and not video. All of that to say is I was spending so much time with that man. Now, that's beyond the point that he had hundreds of thousands of followers. He was posting insane amount of content per day. Beyond that point, I built so much trust with him because I spent so much time listening to his content. I felt like I knew a lot of the things that he was going to say in his talks or in his answers. And buying the book was validation. It was also my way to show support and thanks for all of the lessons and things that I felt like I learned from his content. The depth of which he was going in his strategies and the things that he talked about convinced me to buy the book. That's the point that I'm trying to get across. This leads me into my very next point, which is the psychology of showing up consistently and repetition. When we think about following someone on social media, I don't know about you, but for me, when I hit the follow button, I want to see more of their content. I want to come back to them. I want their new things to show up in my feed. Nowadays, that doesn't always happen. And so what I started doing is making notes of creators that I like or saving them in folders on Instagram or adding them to my watch later on YouTube. This is so that I can come back to this creator and follow them, especially if they've piqued my interest once. On TikTok and also on YouTube and Instagram, if you interact in messages, then you're more likely to see that person's content. If you interact with their stories, you're more likely to see their content. This is something that coaches, personal brands, businesses want to get in on, because the more someone spends time with you, the more they feel like they know you. Once they feel like they know you, they're more likely to trust you and then buy from you. Again, these things are not always tied to subscribers and followers. There are people in my YouTube For You section homepage. There are people on TikTok. There are people on Instagram that consistently show up because I've interacted with their content and I do not follow them. And I know that I'm not alone in this, and I'm sure you can attest to this too. If you watch someone's content a lot, that doesn't necessarily mean that you follow them. It means that you enjoy their content. It means that you enjoy what they're talking about, or you enjoyed that specific video or piece of content. There's a principle in marketing, in business, called the 7-11 rule. It's usually that people need to spend 7 hours with you across 11 different touch points before they feel like they get to know you. This is building trust and familiarity. You're not necessarily going to get that from followers or subscribers. You're going to get that from people spending time with you. And the only way to do that is to show up consistently and consistently deliver a level of value that they want from you. The other side of this coin is what I mentioned in the last episode, and that is about talking about the same things over and over again. That was a point that I really harped on in the last episode, but it's true. Whenever you are talking about the same things over and over again, one thing we have to remember is that everyone who follows us is not going to see it. Everyone who's exposed to our videos are not necessarily going to get it the first time around. And everyone who sits through and listens to whatever you have to say isn't necessarily going to pick up on every minute detail of what you said the first time around. So you need to talk about the same things over and over again. Building that repetition, showing up consistently, and continually delivering value are what is going to get you more trust, more credibility, more authority, and eventually more money. So we're 4 points into this episode, and I've talked a lot about building trust and providing value, but what does that actually look like? You know, some of you may be watching or listening to this and saying, Larry, I feel like I'm delivering value. I'm trying, man. I'm telling people all my secrets. I'm giving everything away for free, or I'm holding on to things and I'm only keeping it surface level because I want them to buy my thing or my whatever. I'm going to give you a secret. Building trust online can be as simple as being vulnerable and sharing a story. I mentioned this in a previous episode. Storytelling and adding stories to your points or your topics is not only a great public speaker hack or leadership or thought framework, it's also translatable to videos or just regular everyday conversation. When you can tell someone a story that has an endpoint or has a call to action or has something that you want to communicate in that story, they are more likely to remember that story, remember you, and build trust with you because they understood that you were being vulnerable with them by sharing that story. A couple years ago on TikTok, there was a woman named Risa Tisa who had a several-part story called Who Did I Marry? The reason that people tuned into that story, one, because it was crazy, two, because it had a whole bunch of parts. 3, because it was a compelling, vulnerable story. Let's take it back to my Gary Vee example. There are several reasons that people connect with that man. He's successful, he's charismatic, he's energetic, he's a lot of different things. But one of the things that stood out to me early on was that he wanted to buy the jets. That through line came through a lot of his content. He consistently talked about, I'm building this business so that I can buy the jets. He's since moved on from that. However, watching his story go from starting the agency with his brother and growing it to, I don't even know how much money that man makes at this point, but following that story, following the story of him beginning to document so consistently with D-Rock, with Babin, with Iris, with so many of those early people, you can tell how long was following this man, documenting those stories and documenting the story and being vulnerable, like sharing business lessons, sharing, I'm going to this meeting, it's about whatever, it's with so and so. I can't bring you in there because it's a private conversation, but afterwards being like, this is what we talked about, this, it was good, but like, there were so many tidbits and vulnerable aspects of Daily V that I enjoyed that were just like little nuggets of what it's like to be a successful businessman in New York running a content or marketing agency. Sharing that vulnerability made me build trust with that man. It gave me a peek into his life, and it made me understand that being vulnerable and sharing those tiny parts of the day that you think are insignificant are not always insignificant. Sometimes that's exactly what somebody needs in that moment. They needed to know, every meeting isn't going to be fire. Every conversation that you have isn't going to end in a major deal or extra money or anything like that. Just having those conversations and showing up and being present with people is important on its own, and you don't always need something from it. One more part to this point, and I'm really driving it home here, is in order to build trust with other people, you have to trust yourself, you have to trust your intuition, and you have to trust that you know what you're talking about. You have to trust in the process. So trust building content can feel uncomfortable. It can be vulnerable. And I think it's important to have that compass in your head, in your heart, to know what's worth sharing, what's not worth sharing. And the other side of this is when to share. I think a lot of people get caught up in, I want to be vulnerable, I want to build trust, I want to do all these things. And so they just start sharing everything about their lives. They share, what they ate for lunch and what they ate for dinner. And they're not even a health fitness person. They're a business coach, and they're oversharing about their family and their vacations and all of these things that have nothing to do with their end goal. Now, I do believe in sharing personal aspects of yourself. However, I think you need to pick and choose what parts of yourself you're willing to share and be open about, and when it's appropriate to share them. I'm a firm believer that it's not always the best idea to share things in the moment as you're experiencing them, because you need time to reflect and acknowledge the lesson, learn the lesson, write it down, understand it, and then communicate that lesson. If you're sharing everything in real time, things can get messy, things can get distorted. And so my only piece of advice when it comes to sharing vulnerable aspects of yourself online or with other people is timing. Pay attention to your timing, because that's what's really going to help people learn a lesson, is when you learn it, internalize it, and you can move past that situation, especially if it was painful. Then you can share that lesson with other people. All right, moving into my final point of the day, and that is learning to build a content funnel that will work for you outside of your follower number. If you are in the content business world, and if you've been here for a while, you've heard the term of a funnel. For those of you that haven't, a funnel essentially is, it's wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. Simple marketing tactic, metaphor, analogy. Basically, what we see and what we've been taught is that a lot of people enter the funnel up top, they filter out kind of in the middle, and then the people that convert are down at the bottom. Yes, this concept still works. Yes, it's something that is easy to communicate to people who are interested in growing their business, because it makes sense that a lot of people would see you up here, fewer people would see you in the middle, and a small percentage of people actually convert and buy your thing. However, I think it's important to understand the types of content that you need to create in order to make this funnel idea system actually work for you. A lot of people get stuck creating this type of content. And I mentioned it earlier in this episode, is that most people are stuck on this surface level. They're creating trends. They're using trendy reels. They're using trendy music. They're using trendy sound effects. And they're trying to stick to trendy topics. That keeps people stuck up here. They are not going to move down your funnel unless you are creating the content that provides depth to them. They're only going to think of you as a surface level person because you haven't gone deeper. One of the things that I'm attempting to do with this podcast and this show is take people a little bit deeper into the funnel. Not necessarily so that people can convert. I mean, I would love if people converted, but I'm taking you deeper into the funnel. I'm taking you deeper into these topics because it's not something that I can easily communicate in 30 seconds on Instagram. It's not something that you can easily communicate in a 500-word blog post. Taking people deeper into these stories pulls them deeper into the funnel. The people who want to be surface level and who only, get excited when they see you post something and just like it without engaging or anything like that, those people are nice supporters. However, you're a business owner. You're someone who wants to make money. And so you need to pull people into the funnel, deeper into the funnel, and pull them down all the way through to a purchasing decision. Now, the types of content that you need to create. Yes, go ahead. Create your surface level, trendy, whatevers. Don't spend too much time there. My recommendation, and if you're in the marketing space, if you're listening to this for marketing business advice, if you're watching this for marketing business advice, I'm sure that you're starting to notice a shift towards longer form content. A lot of people are moving this way because it's an easier way to communicate your ideas effectively without being pigeonholed to certain time frames, certain timestamps, and without having to cut things off or keep things short or use the DM me to learn more feature. All of those things have their place and their time. I'm not against those tactics. I am for properly communicating your ideas. So the types of content that you need to be creating. Yes, you need to create surface level value content. Give people the tips, give people the surface level information, get them interested in whatever you have to say. Then, and this is where a lot of the content that I help people build is the story content, not the 15-part story content. Give me an exact story. Tell me how you got where you are. Tell me why you're doing what you're doing, and give me the long version. I can only assume that if you're watching/listening to a podcast that you enjoy slightly longer pieces of content. I'm one of those people that sits and watches 30, 45-minute YouTube videos or listens to, 45-hour-long podcasts. That's the type of depth that I enjoy. I don't want the surface level 3-minute, 3 tips to whatever version. I want tell me your whole story. Tell me how you got from point A to point B, and don't leave anything out, because those tiny parts that you have to leave out for the surface level content are the things that are going to carry me, because I'm farther along in my journey than a beginner. Those things are going to carry me to the next level. Those things are going to help me level up. So I'm hoping that that's what this is doing for you, is that these deeper conversations, these stories that I'm sharing and I'm telling, and these, micro moments that are in between the surface level versions of the content are things that will help you, take that nugget and apply it to your business or your life in order to get to where you need to go or level up your content or your business. I'll wrap this up by saying you need to be creating multiple types of content. You need to be creating more than just the surface level version of it. Create the mid-tier version, create the extra long version. There are people out there who want to hear your story. There are people out there who want to spend time with you, who want to understand the way that you think, the way that you've grown your business, or whatever it is that you do. They want to know that. And that is going to be the thing that helps them understand that this person is my person, and this person is someone that I can trust, and this person is someone that I don't mind spending my money with. So I hope today you learned that, you don't necessarily need a ton of followers in order to build trust, build authority, and ultimately make a little bit more money. There are other things and other tactics and ways to garner the attention, to get people to spend time with you in order to get to your end result. And it's not always going to be followers or subscribers. If you are someone who wants to work on creating that types of content, need help coming up with those types of content, there's a link in the description or the show notes of this podcast. In order for you to reach out to me and work with me, I would love to have an initial conversation with you, see what kind of questions you have, see what kind of help you need. And I would love to be able to help you if that's something that you're interested in. If you enjoyed this show today, if you're on a video platform, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you have any comments or any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I'm always watching and responding to the ones that are truly looking for help or looking to be a part of this community. If you're on a podcast listening platform, I would appreciate a rating, 5 stars recommended, if you feel that it was worth it. Thank you so much for watching/listening. My name is Larry G. I've been your host of the Keep Creating podcast. Until next time, remember to do the work, believe in yourself, and most importantly, keep creating. Peace.